Hi, I'm Brian Talley, and just wanted to extend my thanks to you folks, our wine club members. We're getting into one of my favorite times of year. It's springtime. Everything is green. The vines are starting to grow again. And it's also the season of our spring preview. And that's a time where we share our new releases with our very best customers in a way that I think also showcases our beautiful grounds and our gracious hospitality at Talley Vineyards. So I'm in love with our 2023s. It was a beautiful, abundant harvest. The wines have just a nice, juicy approachability that I really appreciate. So as you check out the rest of this video, I hope you have a better sense of what we're doing here, and I look forward to seeing you at the winery sometime soon.
Is there anything specific that customers can expect from the 23s, like as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, the vintage, the 2023 vintage was pretty crazy. We actually got rain, so a lot of water, which that equaled a lot of fruit. We had a big harvest, one of our biggest harvests of all time. Yeah, I mean, I think 23 as a vintage is a more approachable vintage, a little softer. Even though we always have this nerviness to our wines, I think that because it was big, but it was also a very long harvest. We were able to kind of formulate a really nice flavor profile. The longer grapes sit out there, the more flavor we get, right? And so I think that flavor just is a little softer, or that texture is a little softer this year, which I dig. And I think, again, it shows off the vintage, how different it is. Mm-hmm. You go to, like, say, 21, it's going to be a little more nervy, going to a little more pop to it. I think these wines, though they will age gracefully, I think they're tasting really good. Right now.
Like upon bottling, we're like tasting these and we're like, these wines are ready to go. Like sometimes we want to have wines, hold on to them for a bit, age them for a bit longer, like see what they kind of start to develop into. And these wines are just already doing beautifully.
This is our 2023 Oliver's Vineyard Chardonnay. Comes from a vineyard that's named after my grandfather, Oliver Talley, who founded Talley Farms back in 1948. And he started farming about 2 miles west of here, just behind where I'm sitting. And at the end of his life, he lived in a house that's also right behind me, about a half a mile from here as the crow flies. I'll never forget when I brought home the first bottling of Oliver's Vineyard Chardonnay to his house. And he actually drank the bottle of wine, soaked the label off, and framed it and hung it over his bar, which I always really enjoyed looking at when I came over to his house. It was something he was really proud of.
Oliver's always has apple notes on the nose and the palate. It's always apple, and mainly I get more like Granny Smith kind of apple, but it can go into the yellow apple some vintages, but I think that's the distinct quality of it. It's a freshness, a very appealing. I think Oliver's always kind of appeases every kind of type of wine lover. It's a very approachable wine, and then, like I said, that apple just kind of bursts out.
Mm-hmm. We get a lot of questions about oak on Chardonnay. What is kind of the profile on this one?
Yeah, I mean, how we like to make wine, we don't like to overwhelm the wine with oak. We have really killer vineyards, so we want to show off that, right? So this specific wine is about 23% new French oak. Not that much, just kind of a kiss. I think it kind of gives a little more oomph in the mid palate, and then just lengthens the finish. Especially with our vineyards, we have such nice fresh acidity. I think the oak and the acid kind of play really nicely together and kind of just carries it all the way to the finish line. Yeah. We're not doing a paint by numbers, right? It's more free flowing. Again, back to the recipe thing. That's not what we want to do. We don't want to make Sprockets or Pepsi or things like that. Every wine should taste different, and it should taste different every year.
Yeah. It should be reflective of the vintage, not of necessarily just what Oliver's Chardonnay should always taste like. There will be characteristics like the apple notes and the different things that we tend to see each year from the wines, but that doesn't mean that we are making the exact same wine every year. There should be some consistencies, but we also want the vineyard to show through and the vintage to show through. We tend to bottle Oliver's and Rosemary Chardonnay earlier, so they get about closer to 14 months, where as our Rincon Chard, we've noticed that it can hang out in barrel for longer, it can age for longer.
Yeah, I think Oliver's is, like I mentioned, it's so approachable, and when you're having an approachable wine, I think it's just better to capture the freshness of it as early as possible, and it's perfect for spring. I mean, it looks like spring outside right now. I'm drinking this and I want to do this all day.
Yeah, I mean, I think Oliver's tends to be our Chardonnay that almost every single consumer is really liking. So bringing it to any sort of party is always a fan favorite. You can make your mother-in-law happy. You know, you can make all these other people happy. And it can just be a really versatile wine to take places.
Yeah, I was thinking about what it goes well with, and I think the softness, I do like it quite a bit with some sort of chicken dish. But one of my favorite chicken dishes would be like a chicken sandwich, like a fried chicken sandwich.
I thought you were going to say a pizza.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Fried chicken sandwich with the Olivers.
Mm.
It's because of the that little hint of greasiness you have with that chicken sandwich. This has enough of mid-palate fat and then that fresh acid that really pairs nicely with it.
Yeah.
You know?
I think we need one to test that.
I absolutely
Yeah,
need one
right.
desperately. Yes.
This is the 2023 Rosemary's Vineyard Chardonnay. Comes from a vineyard that surrounds my mother's house. It's the coolest site that we farm, one of the few vineyards in California where you can actually see the ocean. And because of that, it just has this beautiful, very direct marine influence. One of the highlights of my career occurred in 2006 when I got to attend the 30th anniversary Judgment of Paris tasting, and our 2002 Rosemary's Vineyard Chardonnay was included in that tasting and actually won the California flight. And it was a very special day and reflective of the fact that Rosemary's Vineyard Chardonnay has been an icon of California Chardonnay for over 20 years now.
So Rosemary's kind of makes itself, I have to say. That it is, we'll take little credit for it. I think the vineyard is in such good shape. It allows us to kind of just take a step back and let it do its own thing. You know, we do all native fermentation here, and so we're not inoculating with anything at all. So it really is, we get the grapes, we put it in barrel and let it do its thing.
We have like so many good blocks to choose from. It actually makes blending slightly difficult.
Yeah, that's the hardest part.
The
It's too
narrowing
good.
down, yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. There is so many great blocks. It's such a high quality site that it takes. It's the longest blending trials that we do is Rosemary Chardonnay. That's for sure. And I think the typical flavor or texture that you get from Rosemary's is there's always some sort of lemon aspect, whether it's lemon curd, lemon zest. I always get some sort of salty or saline or like an oyster shell kind of thing going on with it. It is so bright and lively and energetic, more than any of our other Chardonnays, and that it is like that every year. It makes it truly special. I love the wine.
Yeah. What do you think makes it kind of creme de la creme every vintage?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's our coolest vineyard, meaning its median temperature is cooler than any of our other vineyard. That's going to give us that nice natural acidity. I also think the soil, it's decomposed shale, which is pretty rad, very white. Most where this, the Rosemary Chardonnay comes from is the big chunks of shale. And as this vineyard kind of progresses throughout, it's kind of half bowl, it breaks down more. So it's like talcum powder, and it's just white powder.
It also opens up directly to the ocean, which is really interesting too. Like a lot of our valleys are going, north-south, and that one is the east-west. And so it just kind of creates a corridor for those ocean breezes to come right in, keep everything cool.
Yeah.
How about the barrel program on this wine? What do you guys do with this?
Yeah, so we like to do a mixture of barrique and puncheon for this wine. So puncheons are basically like a double-sized barrel. So it's a big barrel. So it's all about your surface area. And so you can have a new puncheon, and the wine in it is not going to just taste like a new oak bomb. It's going to be integrated better. And so that's what we love with Rosemary, is we want that integration, and we don't want it to get over oaked. So we absolutely love using these bigger barrels, the puncheons, for this wine.
So when we're doing blends and stuff, we want layers of flavor. And so I think the puncheons just add that extra layer that we're always looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can you guys talk about, this is obviously like a single varietal wine, but you refer to it as a blend. Can you go through the process of why this is still considered a blend in the way that you guys make it?
Yeah, absolutely. Rosemary's Vineyard is a vineyard that Brian Talley would call a winemaker's vineyard, meaning that it is chopped up into very teeny tiny little blocks with different clones, different rootstocks, and though it sounds fun, which it is also kind of confusing.
Logistically,
A
nightmare.
Yeah, but then when it all comes together, and you have all these different wines that we make, Chardonnays that we make from Rosemary's Vineyard, and we blind taste everything. We grade all the blocks, and then we start just doing blend after blend after blend, and until we come to a unanimous blind tasted blend that we love multiple times in a row. We have to love it, and so we look at it as a blend, but it's a blend of a bunch of small blocks. We do not have any big blocks here at Talley. Mm-hmm. These are all kind of micro blocks, and I think Rosemary's epitomizes that kind of aspect of vineyard planting and farming.
Yeah, all the different clones and different rootstocks are going to lead to different flavors and different aromatics, and where it is in the vineyard, because some of it is such steep, dramatic slopes, and then as it's coming down, the soil profile is changing dramatically. So, within not a huge vineyard, we have like 14 different blocks and sub-blocks within all of those to denote different clones and different rootstocks, and everything's going to taste different, and everything gets picked at different times too. So when we're doing blends and we're tasting out of all of these different potential barrels that could go into this wine, that's where sometimes we end up going down crazy tangents, and we have to like reel ourselves back in and then refocus to figure out like what is actually the best of the best, because so much of it is the best. So the narrowing the focus gets difficult.
It always, is I think a fan favorite with reviewers. They like it. The thing about this wine is I dig it right now. It's tasting awesome now, but I know what it's going to end up being even better as it sits.
Yeah.
And as we all know, Rosemary's Chardonnay ages so well, and so you can really push the limits with this wine. And I think that's what a lot of reviewers and people in the industry appreciate about this wine is it's got almost two faces. It's great right now, but it's just going to turn to a totally different great wine later on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it is fun to see how this wine evolves. We do a library tasting at Talley, and we'll go through and we'll open up a bunch of things from our library dating all the way back to the late 90s if we have anything laying around still. And without a doubt, Rosemary's Chardonnay ages the best. Its profile is perfect for long-term aging, and it's just always a standout.
Yeah, and the thing we haven't talked about Rosemary is the complexity of it. The depth of flavor, I think, also defines it. Besides, the lemon, the acid, that energy, it has so much going on, and it takes a couple glasses to figure it out.
Right. A couple bottles.
Bottles to figure that one out. Yeah.
Do you have a certain favorite food pairing or favorite activity that you are doing while you're enjoying the Rosemary Chardonnay?
My mind goes to like mushroom risotto, making some scallops or doing some sort of like a clam linguine kind of thing with some nice like lemon and some like white wine on that.
Yeah, a salad sounds awesome with this, with like a champagne vinaigrette.
This is the 2023 Stone Corral Vineyard bottling, and makes me think back to 2001 when we planted this cooperative vineyard along with the Oathman family, which owns Kinsey, as well as Steve and Paula Dooley that have the Stephen Ross brand. It was very unique at the time to establish that kind of collaboration. Stone Corral has always been distinctive in the Talley Vineyards Pinot Noir lineup, in the sense that it's a little bit softer, it's more approachable, has just a bit more color. As such, I think it's perfect as a spring release because of its early approachability.
Stone Corral Pinot, it's yummy.
Yeah, it kind of jumps out of the glass. The aromatics do. It's got this great kind of juicy red fruit characteristic. It's like cranberry, a little cherry. But I think what's distinctive I always get out of Stone Corral is a crayon note. I don't know why, but every vintage I can, you taste it blind, like there's a hint of Crayola crayon, and reminiscent of childhood. Stone Corral, it kind of goes back and forth from having these fresh reds and then going kind of more plummy in warmer years. And I think in 23, this is really kind of going on that red fruit train, and the freshness of it though is
it's so good. Yeah, it's so juicy, and the aromatics just really jump out at you.
Yeah, what's great about this is it's not just fruit flavors. There's just a little bit of like fennelness to it, maybe some dried herbs, a little mushroom.
Yeah.
It's really a cool combination of fruit and non-fruit.
We don't do any whole cluster in Stone Corral. And so we really just like the way that the destemmed fruit comes out, and it has plenty of tannin and plenty of texture. And we kind of get those rustic notes out of Stone Corral anyway, so you sometimes don't want to add too much stemminess to that when you already kind of have that balance between fruit and like dried herbs and things like that. So we just kind of let it do its thing, really.
Yeah, as Emma mentioned, it's always worked better when it's fully destemmed. I think that the vineyard lends itself to that. We don't get the ripeness in the stems that we do at, say, Rincon Vineyard, where we like to use some stems. And I love stems, but just using them just because I like them, that doesn't seem proper.
You gotta do what the wine wants.
Exactly, the wine speaks to you, and you have to listen. But Stone Corral's a cool site because obviously where we are in Talley, once you go west, eventually hit the ocean, and there's sand there, right? And so at Stone Corral, as you go west, it gets sandier and sandier and sandier. As you go east, then the clay starts to form as it goes into the Edna Valley. And Edna Valley is a very different appellation because at the northern part, it's mostly clay, a lot of Diablo clay, really dark clay. And then as you go south, then you get a little more of that loam and sand. And so you make two totally different wines depending on where you are in Edna Valley. And us being southwest, it allows us to get these kind of darker fruit characters, like that plum that I said. You get a lot more plum in the sand. We get more red fruits in the clay. And so that allows us to then play around with these different flavors, more layers of flavor, right? And to kind of make this complete wine.
Yeah.
It can get quite cold, but there's really good drainage too. So when you're farming out there, you're kind of farming hydroponically because there's not much nutrients in the soil, and it's not holding water at all. The available water holding capacity is so low there.
Yeah, it just leaches right out.
Exactly. So you really have to, if we're not getting rain, you got to baby it a little bit. Otherwise, we won't get canopy growth. We won't get cluster growth, or they'll just kind of turn to raisins because they just don't have enough water uptake.
We've started doing newer plantings in some of our older vineyards as well, and now that Stone Corral is aging, we call it when a vineyard comes online, and for the past couple years we've just been thinking that Stone Corral has just been producing the most beautiful quality fruit. It's just finally hit that age where it's really shining.
We love native yeast. It is already out here in the vineyard or in the winery, and we think it just contributes the site, more of the site to the wine. And I think there's great yeast strains out there and whatnot, but I'd rather use stuff that's out here. I like spontaneous fermentation. I like the thought of it. I like the effects that it has on our wines. I don't think there's any negative aspect of it. It just we let things go, and things ferment naturally when it has enough sugar, right? So I just think it's so important, and I think it makes the wine better. It makes the wine more complex. And we see in our fermentations, depending on vineyard, different fermentation kinetics, right? Some are more bubbly than others.
Yeah,
and
they'll look different. The foam will be different on top. The way that when you do a punch down, the way that things are mixing in with each other, it will visibly look different. And that's like how you can see the vineyards are doing their own thing. Different blocks are doing their own thing. It's the whole terroir idea. If we're wanting to make wines that are representative of their place, then why would we bring these outside sources in to ferment them when the yeast that are already present there could just do it?
Is that native yeast, we hand sort here, we do punch downs by hand? Are those all things that are that you can conquer because of a small winery?
Smaller wineries, and also it's a lot of winemakers are just so terrified of ferments not starting, of microbes and things. And yes, you have to have an understanding of like that things can go wrong and that there are microbes that can work against you. But if you also just kind of learn that things just take their time and you just have to wait and then it will happen, all of our ferments always turn out working out. And sometimes you have to baby them a little bit more, but you just have to pay attention to them. But bigger places, the winemakers don't want to pay attention to them. They want to put in the sure thing, and then that's it. Whereas for us, we want the native yeast to take over, and if we have to help it a bit, then we will. That's how they've been making wine, for thousands of years. They've been just doing it this way. So why do we feel the need that we have to use these commercial strains and use this and that when we can just use the yeast that are natively present here?